Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Kansas City-based jazz pianist, composer, and educator Andrew Oulette. He's originally from Hannibal, Missouri, and he is a fixture on the KC jazz scene. He learned under the watchful eye of the world-renowned saxophonist Bobby Watson at the University of Missouri Kansas City Conservatory from 2008 to 2012. And these days, he has quite a busy schedule. Most notably, he gigs each weekend with the legendary KC musician and entertainer Lonnie McFadden at the Reno Club. He's got quite a story. Enjoy.
Thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
So I had a wonderful time. My wife actually took me to see the Lonnie show at the Reno, and I've seen you in different capacities, and it was a wonderful show, and I've just wanted to catch up with you for quite a while, so I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, man. Yeah, thanks for thinking of me for this.
Yeah, you bet. So you got quite a gig. I mean, I would imagine this has to be one of the more upper shelf gigs to have in the city, to be at a dedicated venue with Lonnie McFadden. So how does it feel?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, that is true. We haven't really had, a place where we can just set up, and that's where we play the whole weekend. It's kind of been, just wherever, we've kind of bopped around to different places. So it's nice to just have, a home base. I don't have to tear down a keyboard or anything. There's a nice piano there. Yeah, it is really, really nice.
You really, when we think about all of the ambiguity and all the shutdowns and all the suffering that the artists have gone through, the one thing that seems to remain constant is Lonnie's one of the very few entertainers probably in the world that actually opened up during the height of a pandemic and really has been consistently playing. It's been a consistent gig from the word go, even now as we deal with the variant and things that are happening now.
Yeah, I mean, we were in the parking garage, which, is kind of unique. Not every place, had the ability to put the band outside. So that's why we were able to start in July, I think, is when we started playing there. Yeah, I mean, Lonnie he will just always be working. It's kind of a magical thing, as I don't understand. I'm not as good at that as he is. He knows how to, he always will find work.
He is one of those cream rises to the top kind of guys. What else is going on? I know, this would be a different conversation, say, a month ago, probably around the time that I actually saw the show down at the Reno. But things have changed a little bit. So what is your itinerary looking like? And, how has it been to be able to actually perform live during all of this chaos that's been going on?
For me, honestly, not that different. We'll see how it goes going into the fall here, but I still have, all my stuff with Lonnie, and things aren't getting canceled necessarily yet. So I wouldn't, for me, it's not really different, I wouldn't say, from a month ago. But, I'm lucky to be a rhythm section player and that I don't have to breathe through my instrument, because I know that kind of keeps changing for vocalists and horn players, so that can affect whether, they're able to go out and work. It's been pretty consistent for me. I feel like I have been one of the luckier musicians during this time, and I just basically got to continue working. I just had to wear a mask.
You're originally from Hannibal, Missouri. Talk to me a little bit about how the seeds of not only jazz, but just playing music got into you.
I started taking piano pretty much when everyone else does, when I was like 7 or so, and I wouldn't say I loved it. I mean, maybe I liked it a little more, but I wasn't like obsessed with music when I was 7 years old. I wouldn't say I really got serious about it until high school. And there were some guys a few years ahead of me who were really good jazz players who had, gone to the same high school. So I kind of used that as inspiration. And I had a really great jazz teacher in Hannibal. His name was Jason Duggar. And, I think he was huge in really getting me hooked on this. He was just a great influence and a good player. So to have that influence, I think put me down this path.
So who were you listening to in the beginning? What musicians were really getting you going?
I don't know. I mean, none of the people I would be, that I would say really influenced me now. It's kind of funny to think back then. I kind of was just listening to whatever, my friends were listening to, or just kind of, I guess I would get some recommendations from my teacher, like Miles Davis records, but I wouldn't say I had a real informed idea of what I wanted to listen to then. I don't think I really started to get that until, college. And then after that, it's just, I feel like you really find out what your influences are and what inspires you.
So once you did really get that jazz bug, what was the first live jazz show you saw that really kind of was like, wow, that's something I'd like to do?
That's a good question. I feel like I went to some shows at the Blue Room, kind of when I got to Kansas City, my freshman year, maybe seeing Bobby at the Blue Room. I feel like I went and saw Logan Richardson, and, at that time, I had no idea what Logan was doing. I couldn't understand the music really, but I could still feel the energy behind it, and I thought it was really cool. And I guess I wanted to understand, just what these guys who were a lot better than me, what they were doing. I don't know if there's one particular show necessarily that I could pick out.
Did you have any association with Matt Cain? I know he's from Hannibal.
Matt Cain? Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah, so he's one of them definitely that was an inspiration. And I did, there was a period where I was playing with him, I think, I'm trying to think of the year. I would have been like 23, so maybe 2013 to 2016. When he would come to town, I would play with him, and I made a record with him at that time. And yeah, he was definitely a really positive influence and still is. Yeah, and I don't know if you know Michael Schultz. He was he was 3 years older than me, so I guess that was the most direct, like, oh, okay, this is a guy from Hannibal who's, went to UMKC and, was doing really well for himself. So Marty Morrison, too, those guys are all from Hannibal.
I didn't realize there was such a strong Hannibal connection to the Kansas City scene. So that's nice. What brought you to, was it UMKC that brought you here to Kansas City?
UMKC, yeah. I mean, I knew Bobby was there. And then I would say the biggest thing was that a lot of my peers who I thought were great musicians were going to UMKC. So I was kind of like, well, I kind of want to be in that glut of, guys my age. So I would say that was a big factor.
What was that like there? I mean, it almost seems like this kind of glorified institution, a lot like what you would hear on the coast, whether it's Berkeley or whatnot. When Dan and Bobby were there, it just seems like there were so many musicians that were churned out that are a part of this young lion-esque kind of scene that's going on here. I mean, there was a lot of, Herman and you and Michael and so many other cats. What was it like to learn under someone like Bobby?
Oh, it was incredible. Yeah, I mean, Bobby, he definitely keeps it real with you. I think that's something unique about him, maybe that not every, high-profile jazz, I don't know, actually. But that was definitely something I hadn't experienced before. He will tell you, he'll tell it like it is, which I think is really valuable. You know what I mean? That's honestly the best kind of education, is just to be really honest with people about what they need to work on, what they don't need to work on. And I mean, Dan was great too. I mean, I would say some elements of it were similar to any other, big music school education, probably take some of the same classes. But then, like I said, I think the biggest thing was just the peer group. There were guys older than me who were really, inspirational. Herman Mahari, I think, is probably the one I would think of the most in that regard. Herman, he's made a lot just kind of happen for himself, and I've always found that really inspiring.
So what were those first gigs like? You come up to the big city, you go to a school with an internationally recognized jazz musician. What were those early gigs when you were really starting to kind of get your hands wrapped around the instrument and your place in the scene?
My feelings were the whole range of emotions. It was exciting, terrifying, maybe, sort of, because some of it I was like, I was not quite ready for this. Those two things, maybe the most, terrifying in a good way, just like, oh man, I need to work on this aspect of being a musician. It was just, I'd never, just definitely the caliber of musician I got to, play with on a regular basis jumped way up, which, that was really cool.
What's been the most enjoyable part about being a part of this association of musicians in Kansas City, the Kansas City jazz scene? What has that been like? What do you like the best about it?
Oh, everyone likes each other and is nice to each other for the most part. That's a really nice thing. It's definitely a community. People are looking out for each other. So yeah, I would say that. And I mean, the level is very high too. So it's, it's great to get to play music with people on the level that you want to. And, even on the level that, there are some people where I'm like, oh man, I don't feel like I can quite hang with you. That's inspiring to get to play with people who are better than you.
Piggybacking off of that, what do you like the best about Kansas City?
I guess I like the Midwest vibe. I'm from the Midwest, so that's what I know. The food is great. That's an obvious answer. It's a nice place to live. It's fairly affordable to live, but it's also, an exciting big city, especially, coming from Hannibal, Missouri. This was like, I know to some people this seems like a less exciting Midwestern city maybe, but not to me. I think it was the opposite. I'd never lived anywhere with this many people and just this much going on all the time.
Over your career, you've had the opportunity of, obviously, you've learned from Bobby. You played with Devon Tennicott, Roy Hargrove,
right.
Lonnie McFadden, Marilyn May. What have you learned from these veterans and these big shots in the world of jazz that has in turn helped you as a teacher to teach the younger players?
I guess just, going back to kind of what I said that I got from Bobby, which is just, in a nice way, being really honest with people, and just trying to, not sugarcoat things and just, this is what I think you're doing really well. This is what I think you could work on. I guess that, yeah. I mean, just, these people just have so much experience, so you can just kind of feel that when you're around them. They've just been there and done everything and been in all these situations that you're kind of wondering how to navigate. So,
what do you like the best about being a professional musician? Every day you wake up, you get the chance to create music. What's the most enjoyable part of it?
I mean, that, I guess, music definitely is the most interesting field of study to me. So I guess just that, to get to, think about and focus on the thing that I find the most interesting every day, I would say is the coolest part of it. Kind of what you said, yeah.
Let's just kind of enter kind of this realm here of what if. If you have a dream tonight, you run into your younger self around the time that you were starting to play, and you could give your younger self one piece of advice based on what you've learned after all these years of being a professional musician, what would that one piece of advice be?
Learn everything by ear. Stop learning things off charts. Focus on your rhythm. I think rhythm was something that, at some point I really started trying to, zero in on that and work on that. I think it's hard to know at that age. It's hard to really, because you don't even know yourself as a player yet necessarily, to really kind of see your own strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, I mean, I would say maybe the first thing, especially that I said, just learn everything by ear. I think I was always a really good note reader, which I think, that can be a real blessing, but it can also kind of hold you back, because then you can just read everything off a piece of paper, so you don't feel the need necessarily to learn it by ear, which is really the way to do it.
Let's enter another realm of what if here. If a Jazz DeLorean pulls up in front of your house when we get off the phone, and you can punch in the digits, go anywhere, see anybody in the history of jazz, who are you going to go see? Where are you going?
I would go, probably a lot of the obvious answers. I mean, I would go see John Coltrane Quartet in, 1963, 64. I would go see Art Tatum. I would go see Charlie Parker, Bud Powell. I mean, probably a lot of the obvious answers, but for good reason, because that's, they're the best for a reason. Yeah, I guess maybe those people I mentioned.
You've had the chance to see a lot of faces over this pandemic, and as it's eased up and things have started opening up, what has been the most pleasurable part for you as a musician, and then seeing people that are coming out more now about them kind of reliving live jazz again?
Well, yeah, kind of like you said, I guess just seeing people rediscover that they like live music. It's like you don't appreciate something until it's gone, sort of that kind of aspect of it. Just, feeling the crowd energy and just, really getting back to that live gig experience has been really nice. Playing over Zoom or, doing like live stream gigs is obviously not the same feel. So yeah, just having that crowd energy there has been great.
So why do you love jazz?
Because you can do anything, I guess, which is really, a little terrifying, but also really freeing. You make all the decisions about what you want to do. So I guess I like that aspect of it. And maybe to piggyback on that, I feel like jazz musicians are true studiers of the music. You know what I mean? It's like, that's, I think, what I'm really interested in, even more than jazz, is just actually understanding the harmony and the rhythm of what I'm doing. That's my favorite aspect of it, getting to study that.
Beautiful. So let's get to the essence of you. I'm going to save this one for the last one here, and it's this. Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, your students, but ultimately you live your life. You're the one in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Hard-working lover of music. I do genuinely love it. And just someone who's always striving to get better at what he's trying to do. Beautiful.
Andrew, thank you, man. It's been great catching up with you. It's been great to see you out live, and
thanks, Joe.
That Lonnie night was quite magical to finally
Glad to hear
it. Something that great live. So hey, thanks again. I really appreciate it. Good luck as everything opens up and the world kind of hopefully starts returning to some semblance of sanity. It's
right.
It'll be good. So
thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me on this.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Kansas City and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Andrew for catching up with us and for his story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.